I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2019 New Generations Forum, sponsored by the Rotary Club of St. Charles Parish. At this time, we're going to ask Holmville High School Interact President Sophia DiStefano to lead us in the invocation along with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise?
Lord, thank you for getting everyone here safely tonight. Please look over us as we attend this meeting and as our panel answers our questions. Please look over everyone as they look to you for guidance through the year and through any troubles that they are having. Thank you for everything you have done for us. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sophia. We are here tonight, as is accustomed, to give our students from Deschrane and Holmville High School an opportunity to talk with some very important people in our parish, and we're thankful that they are with us. Speaking of which, I'd like to take a moment to allow each of our panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start to my right with Parish President Larry Cochran.
Larry Cochran, St. Charles Parish President. Really, that's it.
All right.
Okay, great.
All right. Dr. Ken Ortling is here as well.
Dr. Ken Ortling, Superintendent, St. Charles Parish Public Schools. I just want to thank the students on behalf of the school system and certainly our guests for coming out this afternoon to ask some intriguing questions, and we look forward to responding and working with you guys. So thank you for that.
All right. We have tonight Sheriff Greg Champagne. And also Judge Tim Marcel.
Good evening.
All right, this is a time in which we will ask the panelists some questions, and we want you to know that each of these folks, along with many other folks in the parish, are very interested in your future and also very interested in making St. Charles Parish the very best place to live, work, and to raise a family. So with our parish public schools, they are graciously hosting us tonight, so we'll put Dr. Ortling on the spot. Would that be all right? First question up. All right, Dr. Ortling, one of the questions that has been submitted is, how can high school students get more support for college preparation? Are there any programs, classes, and/or outreach being planned to help in this regard?
Sure. So the first suggestion is get to know your counselor very well, right? We changed our recent model for our high school counselors so that students will have the same counselor for 4 years, right? So that should allow for our counselors to know our students a little bit better, to know what they want after high school. But as far as actual college preparation, there are a couple of different ways, especially with our counselors and the information that they provide or should be providing to you in regards to, especially as you get closer to becoming a junior or senior. There's a newsletter that they provide for our students in regards to college preparation. There are college and career night. We just had one last night at the community center. There are financial aid nights. There are junior and senior nights as well, where they provide information directly related to college and college preparation. As far as online resources, there are different websites that you can go to and use to facilitate additional preparation in addition to the courses that you may take as a junior or a senior when we talk about AP courses as well as CLEP exams. So although the question wasn't specific in regards to those things, I think there are a lot of opportunities at the school. Specifically, you would need to ask your counselor and administrator as well. And I also want to mention the Senior Summer Institute is something that we put together, started last year, actually 2 years ago, and it's for all juniors that are becoming seniors, and offers a variety of topics for students when they become college or career when they leave school. So that's another opportunity that they can take advantage of.
All right, thank you, Dr. Orling, for that response. I know the schools are very interested in helping the students to be fully prepared as they take their next step after high school, some of which would be college, others are trade schools, and I know there's some local that are very good as well. But at about that same age, President Larry, we have these students I know are looking forward to the future, but they get to that age 15, 16 range, and they start thinking about not riding that school bus anymore, but driving to school and driving around the neighborhood and that kind of thing. One of the questions that had come in, would it be possible to speed up the DMV so that more people can be serviced faster?
Unfortunately, we have no control over the DMV. Now, we provide their housing, and that is something we could work with through our state reps and our senators, and even the governor. You know, it wouldn't hurt to get the governor involved, because this is something I'm sure that's statewide. But we could facilitate working through these different agencies to try to improve the Department of Motor Vehicles.
I guess a little patience never hurt anyone, but when you get to that point, you're ready to get your license, and you go in there and you just can't wait. But maybe a little bit of patience can go a long way.
On the other end, too, though, they need patience on the other side of the desk, too, you know, because they're very impatient as well.
That's right. All right, Sheriff Champagne, we're thankful that you are with us as well this evening. I know there's some things that cause alarm in the schools, and I know on a national level, certain events really can become a bit anxiety-provoking, especially things such as school shootings. But other than the active shooter drills that take place, how do officers train for school shootings?
Oh, this is, this is hard to talk about this topic with just a few sentences. Obviously, we train for school shooting, and I'll get to that, how to react to it. The problem is, once we're reacting to an actual event, a school shooting event, it's really late, and that bad things are going to happen when that happens. So we want to focus on all aspects of it, not just how we respond to it, but we were one of the first parishes working with our school district in the United States of America to actually come up with a written plan that we put into action to prevent school shootings and to put safety measures in place in the event that things happens at a school, the lockdown procedures and all that. And those things we've been fine-tuning that and changing it as the state-of-the-art responses have come out over the years. Some of y'all may have even participated in it. Every 2 years, we do a full-blown event. Again, this is a bad thing. By the time that happens and somebody's in the schools with a gun, people are going to die. It's a bad thing. So we really want to prevent it before it gets that way. But if it does, then we train to certainly react, to get people there quickly as possible, and to minimize what may be happening. I have been, in fact, in the last couple of months, working with the superintendent on some new technology, which, I know we're close to finalizing that. The state has even offered some technologies which will even prove that even more, to where we'll have more quick notification to law enforcement officers through apps, which we're looking at. It's not definite yet, but I think you're going to see that in place before the end of this, before Christmas, I would think, which would provide more immediate notification to law enforcement officers when an incident occurs, meaning that if there's a deputy driving by a school, and then we're going to provide the teachers with an app. That's the plan, and that's the technology, where they can hit the right button without going through 911, because by the time you get on the phone, if something's happening, people go into tunnel vision. Teachers, whoever it is, when something happens, it's scientifically proven that the only color that somebody can even identify is a red, because their mind, you can't even make a simple phone call. How many times have you been nervous, excited about, not that, but just something excitable, and you're trying to call a number and you just can't get the number right? Well, imagine if you hear gunshots down the hall, okay? So we're looking at this app where it can be a single button, very controlled, geographically in the schools, to where any law enforcement officer, before the 911 operator even hears it, has to take the information, get back, repeat it to the deputies out there, which takes a lot of time, where it can be almost instantaneous. So we're looking at that technology, and I think we're going to launch that pretty soon. We've been working very closely and spent a lot of time on it in the last couple of months, so it's very timely. But again, what we want to do is prevent it. And there are a lot of threats that we get, okay? We've already had two fairly, they weren't credible threats, but they were two threats already this year. We had one, I think, early last school season, which was a rumor that came out of Terrebonne Parish. So somebody, with the proliferation of everybody having cell phones, and again, it seems to be even worse the younger the age group is. When you get more into the middle schools, it becomes even worse because they got a lot less discipline in what kids send on school. So getting back to my point, there was a non-credible threat made in Terrebonne Parish. Somebody said they were going to shoot up a school. Well, it was determined not to be legitimate, just somebody mouthing off. That rumor got to us, and we could not track it down. The night it got here, we could not track down where it was coming from. And if y'all remember correctly, and I believe it was at Hahnville, or J.B. Martin, and about a year ago. It was. And there was a panic. You had half the parents came to J.B. Martin, took their kids out of J.B. Martin, and it created a widespread panic because of rumor. And it turned out to be an unfounded rumor started 2 days prior in Terrebonne Parish, which just took our detectives that much time to track it down and figure out where it was even coming from. So we need to have a lot better coordination with the other school systems. We had two this year where a kid will say something. And, so we take those things very seriously, but if you, as leaders, which you all are, is to preach to everybody else, when you hear a rumor that some child who may be special needs, they may have some mental issues, we have kids with some issues in school, and they will say things. You hear that, the first thing you should not do is get on your cell phone and say, hey, little Johnny said he's going to shoot up J.B. Martin on Friday. The first thing you should do is tell a teacher and administrator and let us get to it, because I can tell you, when we get one of those threats, not knowing anything about it, and, and again, they all have been non-credible and they didn't really mean it. It wasn't going to happen, but we took everyone as seriously as we could. Detectives run it down. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out who said it, why. We try to make actual contact with the person who's made the threats. We go to the family's home. We interview, and first thing we're looking for is this person really capable of doing this? Did they have the means to do it? Do they have access to weapons? We look at all of that stuff because we, as quickly as possible, want to put out a message to the students and the parents who are all panicking by this point. Hey, we've looked at this. It is not a credible threat. Everything's going to be okay. And so I got questions from parents and all saying, well, are we just supposed to trust you, Sheriff, and the school system when you say everything's going to be okay tomorrow? And my answer is, yes. What else can we do? But we're not going to put out a word, and I'm not going to put out a social media post, and the superintendent's not going to put out something unless, first off, we're talking about it, and we have looked at it carefully, and we have eyeballed, been in the home of the person who made the threat and determined that, look, this is not a real threat. It's not going to happen. They don't have access. It was saying things that they shouldn't have said. So we take them very seriously, and before you're going to hear a statement come out from him or I, school system or the sheriff's office, rest assured that we have very carefully gotten to the bottom of it, because I got grandkids in the school system. I had kids in the school system, and I'm not going to tell you it's safe unless I would be willing to send my grandchild to that school the next day. So we look at that very close and very seriously. Spread the word to other students. Tell someone first. Don't get on the phone and say, I heard this rumor. That spreads panic. Let us know about it. We are the people that can get to the bottom of it and do something about it as quickly as possible. So it's going to continue to happen. We've had two already, and we're only a month into school system, so there are going to be more. People say things, they get angry on social media, but you need to report it. If you see somebody, what we're looking about is the kid and the ones who actually do it are the ones that maybe don't make all these threats. They're just distant. They may be bullied. They may be ostracized. They may look isolated. And if you see a kid like that, tell a teacher. Tell somebody so that somebody can intervene and see if they are being mistreated, where they feel like they've got no alternative, nothing left to live for, and are willing to do something as crazy as that. But I can tell you, we take these things as serious as you can take anything, because we know how significant it is. We know the safety risk it is to our students, and we want to make sure that we do everything possible to run this thing down and let you be safe in your schools.
I know the students, along with their families, are very much appreciative of the diligent work that our Sheriff's Department does in taking all of those threats very serious and investigating them to the full potential. Now, Judge Marcel, we have a bunch of high-quality, top-level students in the audience tonight, and I know many watching at home as well, and none of them would ever get in any trouble. However, there was a question that came in regards to how is it that some cases have a jury and others it's just a judge?
All right. These are very good questions. We have essentially three primary systems within our justice system. We have a criminal justice system, we have a civil justice system, and we have a juvenile justice system. In our criminal justice system, if someone is accused of committing a crime that is classified as a felony offense, a felony offense is a crime which is punishable by anything more than six months in prison, okay? That person's entitled to a trial by jury under our Constitution. In a civil case, if the amount in controversy, in other words, the dispute is over a dollar value of $50,000, either party can request a trial by jury. In our juvenile justice system, jury trials are not available. That is the short answer.
And we appreciate short answers, right? We, thinking about our criminal justice system and the work of our judges, I know I'm very thankful for the work they're doing and understanding that, especially when it comes to juveniles and adolescents, that sometimes it's not so much a criminal issue as much as it is a mental health issue or a family type issue. And so we'll come back to Dr. Ortling as far as the schools are concerned. Dr. Ortling, what is the vision for the role of the new mental health professionals at the school sites?
Sure. If I could just add to something that Sheriff Champagne had mentioned in regards to sometimes those threats, we're really trying to be proactive. Obviously, we work very closely with the sheriff's office when those threats do come up, especially via social media. But right now, we're piloting some software where we monitor online discussions between students as well as the work as well. So when we talk about being proactive and identifying potential threats of violence and also potential threats to students themselves, we're now starting to actively monitor those things through our own digital media sources. So I wanted to add that. As far as our mental health professionals at each school and the mental health program, you may or may not know, we recently, about a month and a half ago, the board approved an initial pilot of a mental health program for our school system. It's long been recognized in the state that many mental health facilities and mental health services have been shut down in the past 8 to 10 years. So the services that we plan to provide are really services that are no longer provided in the way they used to be. So the purpose of the professionals is, one, to provide direct mental health support for our students that need that support, also support with our counselors and teachers in identifying some markers in regards to mental health issues that some of our students may or may not have, and also to build their capacity in working with some of the students that may have some mental health concerns. So that's the overall goal. We're going to start with a pilot of 3 mental health professionals at 1 middle, 1 elementary, and 1 high school, and then with the potential within the next 3 to 5 years having mental health services at each one of our schools.
And I definitely, as a licensed counselor, definitely appreciate the increased interest that the schools have in providing these mental health services to the students. And it's going to have a positive impact not only on individual students in their own lives, but in the classrooms as a whole, as far as better learning environments and also safer schools as well. We'll come back to President Larry Cochran in regards to fires. Now, no one likes fires, and we have a whole lot of awesome volunteer fire units in the parish. But one of the questions that had come in was, what steps could the parish take to provide the community with at least one 24-hour, fully staffed, paid fire department?
Well, that's a trick question, fully staffed, because you have 9 different fire departments within the parish. You have 9 different fire chiefs. You have 9 different presidents of the fire departments. The parish does not really oversee the fire departments. They oversee the individual departments. We have a contract through St. Charles Parish Firemen's Association that we run the funds through that are divided up. We have a 1/8 cent sales tax that is split in various ways. We called it the house count. You know, the largest department being Luling, get the most money. The second one's East St. Charles, which is in Destrehan. Third, St. Rose. Fourth, Narco. I guess you can see that I know this a little bit because I was the association president for a number of years. But then we passed along when the sheriff was pushing for that 911, we also, the fire departments went ahead and got a millage at the same time, which we brought the smaller departments up to the larger departments as far as equipment and everything, fire stations. We split that 9 even ways. So we're at a point now where the fire departments, it's going to have to come from within to decide the next step. And I know right now we have the chiefs are meeting, and they've been going off to New Orleans where they're not being called off for a fire or anything. They go, they've been going on Saturdays once a month to talk about and debate how we go in that direction. Presently, you have St. Rose has paid staff, East St. Charles has paid staff, Narco has paid staff, Luling has paid staff, and I'm not sure, I think Parish does as well. So we do have paid people right now, okay? And the fire departments are judged on their rating. The rating, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. So all of our departments are 4 or lower, which is very, very good. So what it equates to is that they're doing the right thing with the tax money right now and saving the homeowners money. And, you know, we have all these things saying we can't get a Home Depot because we don't have a paid fire department. We can't get a Kmart because we don't have a paid fire department. That's not true. You know, we don't get a Home Depot because we don't have the rooftops. We don't have the number of people living in St. Charles Parish. The fire departments are doing a great job. They truly are. So, you know, as long as I'm parish president, you never see me go say, okay, we need to go paid, because that is a very, very, very complex matter, you know, from finances to people to the whole 9 yards. They're being proactive with what they're doing with their monies. You know, everybody got up to a certain level as far as equipment and training and everything, so they started dedicating the money toward paid people. So we have that now, and they're heading in the right direction, and they're meeting. You know, as we talk, the chiefs are meeting on how to go about doing it. And I look to see some great things in the next 4 to 8 years through the fire departments. But they're doing a great job right now, and I'll support whatever they want to do.
And thinking about the volunteer firemen and women throughout the parish, I know some of them personally, and I always have admired their courage. I have occasionally wondered how much volunteer firemen get paid, but that's a question for, that was supposed to be a joke, sorry.
They get paid a lot.
Yeah, we're very thankful for the work that they have done, and we appreciate the efforts that the parish has in supporting our fire departments here in St. Charles Parish. Sheriff Champagne, coming back to this idea of schools and also protection, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier about bullying. Under what circumstances would the police be the first contact to report bullying?
A child being bullied, tell their parents, and we might get the call first, but I think the vast majority of them reported to school administrators first, and that's where it should be. The primary responsibility of investigating bullying cases is with the school system, you know, and the school system accepts that and understands it. So we allow the school system and certainly encourage them, and again, in most of the places where it's encouraged, we've got resource officers involved, but it's an administrative investigation first where school officials should look into an allegation of bullying first and make that determination. There is no crime of bullying. I'm not saying bullying is not bad, it's horrible, but there is no crime under the criminal laws of bullying. There's cyberbullying if you do things online, but a student taunting another student is not necessarily a crime. It's a disciplinary infraction that we hope that school officials handle, and I believe handle well in almost all of the cases. And occasionally there's some where the parents are not satisfied, and the students are saying things, but, we have to allow the school system to deal with it because, in fact, the teachers and administrators are in the custody, our students, you're in the custody of school officials for the most part. So, and I think they do a great job with most of them. Occasionally we have those situations where, parents might not be satisfied about the way it was handled, and occasionally they come to us saying, we don't think the school handled it properly, and so and then we will go to them, kind of find out what happened, do our own investigation, and, I don't remember it happening, but maybe a case or two over many, many years where if it does turn out that there was a criminal act involved, then we will take action if it occurs. So, but generally we defer to the school system. Let's see, what I wanted to say about that was, lost my train there for a second. Did I kind of?
Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of
And-
got the question?
And I hope one of the things that the students are picking up on is the strong working relationship between the various entities that are here, along with other departments and systems here
But
in
Eric, we do
St. Charles
get,
Parish.
what I wanted to add was, a lot of this stuff gets instigated, again, going back to social media. We see a lot of, it seems like people are so quick to talk negatively and criticize other people. I mean, if you look at adults, they do it with our national politics. If you don't agree with me, or, I like the Republicans, I like the Democrats, there's so much divisiveness, and unfortunately, that filters down to you. So, we need to urge all of you, and I know y'all are the leaders, and you know this, so we feel like we're talking to the choir, preaching to the choir, but it's so quick, it's so easy to say something on a cell phone when you don't have to look in somebody's face and criticize them, or you hear a rumor and you spread a rumor. Urge others to just think twice about that. Those things are very hurtful. And this is new. When I first got to be sheriff, there were no students with cell phones. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. It seems like we were in a much simpler and less angry times, not that we didn't have problems, but those things can be very hurtful when you say things about people. So urge restraint, respect. It's about respecting everybody.
Even us, we are held to a higher regard and all that Facebook stuff too, we get talked about as well, so, that
Are you
Facebook-
suggesting people say things online they would never say in person?
Yeah, they do. No, they do that.
In a very,
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Judge Marcel. Well, I did want to say one other thing. As far as bullying, one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard was, if that is occurring, make sure you tell an adult at home and an adult at school, and that way both sides would have a good working knowledge of the situation. Judge Marcel, for a long time, 17-year-olds were considered to be adults in the justice system, but from what I understand, there's been a change recently in that they are no longer considered adults, but are now juveniles. What does this mean, and what impact does it have on things such as their record or sentencing or things such as that?
Well, it's not a sudden change. It is a process of transition that has been taking place now for probably the past 3 years. The Louisiana legislature commissioned a blue ribbon committee to study the impact of transitioning 17-year-olds from the adult criminal justice system back into the juvenile justice system. And that transition first started with moving 17-year-olds who committed nonviolent offenses back into the juvenile system. 17-year-olds who commit violent offenses are still subject to the adult criminal justice system. The difference is, as we talked about earlier, is there are 3 different primary components to our justice system: the juvenile, the civil, and the criminal. Well, the juvenile justice system is guided by the Louisiana Children's Code. The Louisiana Children's Code sets forth the rules of procedure, how arrest is to be made or when it's to be made, as opposed to the Louisiana Louisiana Criminal Code, and the Code of Criminal Procedure, which has its own rules for making arrest, bail, etc. So from a nuts and bolts standpoint, if you will, a person 17 and under who commits an offense, a crime, that is prohibited by the Louisiana Criminal Code is still subject to a prosecution but it's in the juvenile court setting under the rules of the Children's Code. 18 and over are subject to the rules of procedure defined by the Louisiana Code of Criminal Procedure. And it's significantly different. The Children's Code says that, for instance, a prosecution is instituted by the state through the office of the district attorney. Now, in the adult criminal system, prosecution is instituted by the state through the office of the local district attorney. In the adult system, it's by either what's called a bill of information or a bill of indictment. That starts the process. That's when they usually come in front of a judge for the second time. First time is for bail. Under the Children's Code, a prosecution is instituted by the state filing a petition. There's allegations that the person has committed a crime, and then they appear in front of a judge. Those are the primary differences on the front end. On the back end, there is a difference in the sentences or the dispositions that are imposed under the criminal code versus the children's code. That has been, it's been a work in progress. It's
not it wasn't an overnight
it's-
change. It's something that's been going on in the works for the last few years.
And it's still in the process because next year, the legislature has said violent offenses, certain violent offenses will be moved from adult court to juvenile court. Now, the legislature still has an opportunity in an upcoming session perhaps to change its mind, but that's how it stands now. So on the local level, the sheriff and the justice system and the DA's office are adjusting and complying with the law.
And, you know, the whole idea of this, the point of it is not just, well, we want to be nicer to 17-year-olds. Unfortunately, 17-year-olds commit way too many crimes. It's that, you know, the legislature and society has been trying to find that magic sweet spot where we can treat them as juveniles. But the big significance of treating someone as a juvenile as opposed to an adult is it gives them a better shot at going, leading a straight life. I don't want to say going straight. That sounds like a cliche. But no. Because if you're treated as a juvenile, it's confidential. Your name's not in the paper. You're not plastered all over the place. And so there's a lot of thought and belief that if we do that, then that child has a better chance at becoming a better adult and not going into a life of crime. Whereas if a person is arrested for their first offense, they're 17, a burglary, name's in the paper, it's on the public list, which it is public record, that it kind of stigmatizes them, and then people consider that person as a criminal. So the idea is we're going to deal with your act if you're 15 or 16, if it's a serious act, but we're not going to subject you to public ridicule by making everything public, and hopefully the court system and the services they provide, the mental health treatment, can help them to not continue to recidivate and become really a lifelong criminal. So that's the idea. It's not that there's not going to be justice and punishment. It's just going to be in a different way where it hopefully doesn't have such a long-lasting impact. So we're in a transition phase, and we hope. Thus far, things are not, it's working out pretty well, but it remains to be seen when 17-year-olds are all going to be treated as juveniles in that private system. However, if you commit a serious crime, murder, armed robbery, rape, the DA can still take you if you're, I think, down to 15 and try you as an adult. If you kill 5 people and you're 15, you're going to be tried as an adult. So
yeah, don't do
so
that.
the real horrible crimes are still going to be dealt with. So that's the idea of the system trying to deal with that sweet spot, that 16, 17-year-old age, a little more discreetly, where hopefully they'll have a better chance at not committing more crimes.
And to dovetail, the sheriff is absolutely right. The rehabilitation has been really what drove the transition. The research behind brain science of adolescent development versus adult behavior, and how can we best rehabilitate? How can we best approach the changing of behavior?
And the younger they are, the more hope they have. I think that's the idea. And I know there's many support services in place. All right, Dr. Orling, coming back to you. I know the schools have implemented advisory period in the schedule. What is advisory? What's the purpose of it? And how come some of the students have asked what's the point if not all students go very often?
Sure. Who asked this question?
It's a whistleblower. don't-
So, whistleblower. No, I'll be glad to answer that question. So, especially since I was at the high schools for a very extended period of time, I certainly know what the advisory periods are. First of all, they provide flexibility in the schedule. When students take courses, there are a certain amount of minutes that those courses you are required to attend in that course for specific courses in order to earn credit. So when the schedule is made, those courses have to have a certain number of days that you meet in those classes. But there are also other activities and routines that take place at different grade levels that we have to collect information on, right? So one of the purposes of advisory is, one, to collect and disseminate information to our students instead of breaking up your English class or social studies class for certain grade levels. Just because of the way the schedule is fixed, it's a lot more difficult to do. So rather than take time away from instruction, we keep certain advisory periods each month for schools to have the flexibility to be used in those capacities. So the other benefit, especially for our ninth grade students, as you know, is the mentoring aspect, right? So that transition between 8th to ninth grade is pretty difficult. That's typically where the majority of students, if there are dropouts, occur between 8th and 9th and 9th to 10th. So trying to make sure that our transitional opportunities for our students are there and aligning them with some seniors and juniors that are mentors to the students are very important. So that's important for ninth graders. Unfortunately, sometimes there aren't as strong programs for certain other grade levels when certain advisors meet, right? So when seniors have senior supplies, okay, what are we going to do for the juniors? Well, we'll do junior ring night. What are we going to do for the sophomores? Let's put together something, right? So a lot of the times the counselors are left to try to figure out what specifically to do with certain grade levels, which can be a difficult task. But I will say, and I'll introduce you now to Mr. Chris Campbell in the back. He is our Executive Director of Secondary Schools, and he's back there taking notes. So certainly we're all about continuous improvement and making sure that those periods are impactful for you in some way. They're designed to either provide information, students to reflect on certain topics that is, as young men and women, that hopefully will help you as you prepare for the future and prepare to be future ready. So we recognize, though, there's some work to be done there.
And as the superintendent just mentioned, as far as continuous improvement, it seems as if there's segments within the school program that they even themselves are looking at ways to make things better, and that, I'm sure, is a good thing that students are hearing. Speaking of continuing improvement, President Cochran, how do parish officials decide action steps to improve our community, and how is the public involved?
The council, every 2 weeks, we have a meeting, and it's involving a whole array of things. You know, contracts, people's property through planning and zoning and things of that. So every 2 weeks, sometimes we're the whipping post, and people take out their frustrations on us, but that is their way to, have their day in court, so to say. We also go across the parish with community forums. When I first came in office, recreation was a big thing, and that was a very important thing. We went across the parish getting input for recreation. So we have a bunch of different avenues for people to engage with our government. Our council, they're always there. They always answer the phone. They always return calls. And as the parish president, I have an open door policy. People come into my office. You wouldn't believe some of the things you wouldn't think is important, but it's important to them, so we have to make it important to us. So there's a whole bunch of different ways for people to engage government. But I think the things that everybody see is every 2 weeks the council meeting. And how we actually, I'm not on the council, as you know, I'm, the balances of government, but I sit up there with them, so I partake in the council meeting. But they listen to all kind of stuff every 2 weeks. People come up with drainage issues, and when we're trying to pass an ordinance for a contract, they'll come up and make issues through that way, you know, but I guess that's the best way I've seen in 12 years of government has been through the council meetings. You know, the community forums have worked very well, but we just don't get the participation. You know, we spend a lot of time and effort going across the parish for recreation. We get 2 or 3 people to come out. So it's different ways, but it's what's important to people at the time.
And I know during the council meeting, there's a lot of problems that are addressed, but one of the neat things about the council meetings is that good things are identified and recognized when there's positive things happening in our community. I know recently some rec teams have been recognized. There's proclamations in regards to local community events and also nationwide efforts as far as polio and other items such as that. So getting the word out in that regard. All right, so we're beginning to wind down. And so maybe one more question each or so. Sheriff, what are the laws in regard to vaping? Who's ever even thinks about that? But anyway, vaping's a hot topic.
So I believe the age is 18 to where you can buy the materials, vaping and tobacco, just like cigarettes. It's treated like cigarettes. So I never smoked again. So, you know, a few years ago when I saw people start doing the vaping and your little puffs of steam come out and all that, I mean, everybody treated it like this was vitamin C. Like, oh, this is just wonderful. Man, we don't have to smoke anymore. We got this vaping. It's just so great. I go, it can't be good, you know. Sure enough, it seems like now case after case is showing that it's not good. Over the long term, it's, I don't know if it's steam or exactly how they work, but it's certainly not good, and there are more and more problems with it. And to compound things even worse is, in addition to just the nicotine and the flavored tobacco, so it's supposed to be an alternative to smoking, well, it's got its own dangers. You're still taking an addictive subject, nicotine, an addictive substance. But to make it even worse, what's really causing problems is people are vaping CBD oil. There was a case in Laplace where a lady bought CBD oil from out of state. And it was marketed kind of on the dark market as, you know, hey, this is as good as smoking marijuana. Of course, you know, in the marijuana crowd, all wants to legalize marijuana. I get it. But there are chemical compositions that change. When you start vaping oil, something that's not really meant to be vape, nothing's good for you. But there are more and more cases that the chemical composition of the oil changes when it goes through the vaping machine. And apparently it intensified the THC, which is the bad element in marijuana. And the coroner even declared this woman died because of that. And of course, I just shared the story, and then the national marijuana lobby, the people that are pro-legalizing marijuana, I mean, literally attacked me on social media. I had to take the post down just to, I mean, they attack you. I mean, the crowd that's for something, when you say something they don't like, they come after you. So it's bad. I mean, just don't do it. You got to be 18. I believe in freedom. I'm the sheriff, you know, and I believe in laws, that when a valid law is passed, we should all comply with the laws. I also believe in freedom. I mean, we can't protect everybody from doing things that are harmful to them. I mean, some people eat too much steak with fat in it, you know, and that's going to give you high cholesterol and kill you. But, you know, we do have freedom.
What about number of pieces of pizza?
So,
That's what.
you know, eating a lot of pizza is bad for you, but we got freedom. You have the right to, if you want to get fat and eat a lot of pizza, you can do it, you know? So we like freedom, but I don't know, it can't be good for you, so don't do it. I don't know what else to say.
All right. So again, winding down, Judge Marcel, we've been told that if there is a school fight, there is a fine, and we have to go to court. What happens in the court process, and is this part of the student's criminal record?
And there's also a stockade that you have to stand in for 18 hours in the sun. I'm joking. Who's planning a fight? It sounds like somebody's contemplating, they're doing a risk assessment. Raise your hand. Come on.
Holmville
Own
versus
it.
Destrain,
Own it.
it's Interact Clubs. That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, I know,
Just
it's a
kidding.
rough crowd. You know, school fights have existed as long as there have been schools. I recall my 4th grade year, me and this other fella, we had recess back then. We didn't have brain breaks. You know, we got into a fight every recess. And if you ask me why I did that now, I couldn't tell you. But in 5th grade, we were best of friends. So I don't know. Look, from a legal standpoint, a fight, it usually involves the crime of a battery, okay? The battery is touching someone without their permission to cause them harm, okay? The school has discretion on how to respond to a school fight, and I'm gonna ask Dr. O, you mind me calling you Dr. O? No, sir. Okay. Coach O, Dr. O.
It's all one and the
It's
same.
all one and the same. The school has the discretion on how to respond to the incident. And one of the responses is a diversion, if you will. It's the conflict resolution program. And please correct me if I misspeak, but part of the conflict and the judges do participate in the conflict resolution program. But there's also some elements that we're not completely familiar with, so I don't want to misspeak, but there's a financial.
Sure, so part of that process is it's a $100 fee for students to go through this process for the conflict resolution program, which helps it helps to fund the officers and personnel that are part of the program, because this is not directly associated with the sheriff's office or the school. It's a combination of both. So in order to fund that, they do charge the $100 for them to go through the diversion program.
Now, there's some circumstances which arise where the diversion program may not be available, given the severity of the incident, in which case, remember, we talked about the juvenile justice system, and there may be an arrest, which will lead to the filing of a petition, which will have to require the youth and their parent or caretaker to appear in court to answer charges, typically of disturbing the peace or for a battery. So how did that help you out your risk assessment?
I want to add an important thing here, too. You know, and those of you who may know, how many of you know that we have actually softened up on what was originally called 25 years ago, the zero tolerance policy? Y'all have heard that, right? Dr. Ortling and I were talking about this before the meeting, so y'all asking again something that we were asking, hey, how's everything going? 25 years ago when we started this, there were a lot of fights, especially in the two high schools. And so we started this get tough, zero tolerance policy. If you're caught fighting, you're going to jail, you got to go to ADAPT and Saturday dispute resolution, the whole 9 yards. You got arrested, had to bail out and everything else. And so the number of fights dramatically went down 25 years ago. So now they've kind of creeped up a little bit now, and so, but we had some cases where, hey, if you're caught fighting, you're charged, you're arrested. Zero tolerance, right? Well, in the adult world, if you get attacked and you're committing, you know, and you're defending yourself legally, it's not a crime. And so, you know, and we started getting legitimate claims from families who are saying, I really believe my child was defending themselves. And sometimes it's hard to tell. I remember we had a video a couple of years ago, where we were looking at it, and here we are. I mean, we're professionals in the law. And I go, well, I think that's self-defense. No, I really don't think it is self-defense. You know, looking at the same exact incident, sometimes it's hard to tell. So we have softened up. We try to be reasonable. If there indeed is evidence that it's self-defense, we don't want to charge the person who really didn't start the fight, got attacked, and then started swinging to defend themselves. And when everybody looks, it looks like they're fighting just as much. So we have softened up. The downside, as Dr. Erling told me before, is fights are up again. Now, is it because of we're softening up on self-defense? I don't know. We need to figure that out and find out again where the happy medium is, where we want to make schools as safe as we can and deal with the people who are really perpetrating the offenses in a reasonable way, but keep everybody safe. So we were discussing that. What is the reason for that? Maybe y'all can help us.
So
Can we ask you a question? Why are there more fights?
Would anybody like to share? Raise your hand.
Social media, Facebook again, the big evil that we got today out there?
There's a hand raised.
I'd like to know. Tell
Why
me.
don't you stand up, sir? Stand up.
Stand up?
Stand up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
Yes.
Oh, my name's Evan.
Hi, Evan.
I go to Hahnville. I think fights are up for just a general lack of respect that students have for each other. I mean, I don't know. It's just like, why don't people just work out their differences rather than just hitting each other?
See, and I think a couple of things. So first of all, let me talk. First of all, I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? And that's one reason we really are trying to use restorative practices responsive classroom developmental design, because what we're finding, and we mentioned this earlier with the social media piece, right? Your social platform right now is completely different than we as adults are used to, right? Because we talked about the ability to speak freely, right, without having any oversight. So there's a lot less oversight in regards to how we're communicating and how we're teaching each other to communicate. So when you communicate that way online, it's free, right? It's back and forth. You aren't being taught, or you aren't being molded to speak correctly, I guess, or in a respectful way. We call it digital citizenship with others, whereas part of the responsibility is families at home, right? Those who work with you each and every day. It's also our responsibility as educators, and that's where we need to shift some of our focus in how we work with our students and preparing them for the future, which includes those social media platforms. In regards to the fighting, specifically at the high schools, right, Sheriff Champagne did say, because here's the difference. When you issue a summons, it doesn't directly stay on your record for your entire life. If it's an arrest, it does. So part of the reason to soften, when we say soften, to issue a summons instead of arrest, because of the school or prison kind of mindset, right? We were arresting 6th grade students. 11 and 12-year-olds were being put in handcuffs, and then they would have that on a record for the rest of their lives. That's not fair, right? And if you look at the research will show you that, when students are arrested, they're more than likely not to be as successful in life, and more likely to go down that, I would guess, school or prison pipeline. So that was the intent of us softening some of those things. While at the same time, though, we have to be very cognizant of the environment of our schools. So when fights completely disrupt the environment of the schools, unfortunately, we have to arrest, right? Because it also has to be a deterrent. So there's a fine line between being a deterrent while also identifying and knowing the needs of our students. So if a fight breaks out between me and Sheriff Champagne, and it's a push and shove kind of a deal, and the administration comes there and breaks it up, right? Could be a summons, more than likely would be a summons. But if it's a knockout, blown out fight where administration gets involved, staff and faculty members get involved, and someone is hurt or it's a major disruption, unfortunately, they should be arrested, especially at high school when they're young adults. We mentioned earlier some of the crimes that are committed by 17-year-olds. So we as a school system have to be cognizant of both. We're working directly with the sheriff's office, with our resource officers, to make sure that's the case moving forward. Because we did find that we were kind of slacking from that standpoint in issuing more summons and sometimes arrests. So we're certainly going to continue to address those concerns as they come up.
All right, we are in the final moments here. Just no more questions except any final remarks. We'll start with Judge Marcel and go this way. Just maybe 30 seconds or so. Just any final words to these students.
One of the themes of tonight has been the impact of social media on our lives. And when I was growing up, and I believe everybody else on this panel were growing up, our world was about 5 blocks around our house, anywhere we could get to on a bicycle. You guys have the world at your fingertips and the ability to communicate in 24 hours a day. I brought my kids to a mall one time. I said, this is where I came at your age to meet other people my age, right? But now you guys have Instagram and Spotify and see? But look, there are real challenges that you guys are facing that we're trying to to understand. And one thing that sticks out is you guys are getting a much better education and are a lot smarter than I was at your age. But on the other side is you have different challenges and learning how to interact with one another. And face-to-face is something that has to be developed. And I think the world is at your fingertips. You're brilliant, but I want to give you 2 things. Do what you say you're going to do. Your word means something. And the other thing is finish what you start. It's been a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Thank you, Judge Marcel. Sheriff Champagne.
Just to quickly add to that, I believe one of the biggest scourges that we have on our society, both, not only school-age students, but adults as well, is the technology and the cell phone. It's so sad, and my wife jumps on me. Of course, my job is I gotta be connected, and I got a lot of serious things to deal with, so I'm not necessarily just chit-chatting. But I mean, how many times do we go into a restaurant and we see a family of people, 3 or 4 people, or you with, not you, but, you know, teenagers with, and there you are together, and you got a perfect chance to look at each other and talk and be respectful, and everybody's on their cell phone talking to somebody else. So what message are you sending? That who I'm talking to on the phone is more important than you who's right here. And I've had my wife almost slap me over the same thing. Get off the cell phone. You're having dinner with me. I don't
That'd
want to see
be
you
a
on that telephone.
battery, a felony,
So
or
we
a...
gotta get back. Yeah, I mean, she didn't really slap me. She
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to. So get back to personal relationships, you know, respect for people, and I don't know, we're becoming a digital screen society, and I'm fearful for young people that, you know, you're bypassing these personal relationships, being able to talk to somebody. It's a lot easier to get mad at somebody behind the screen than it is when you're talking face to face. You're much nicer, you're much more respectful. So let's get back to personal relationship, which is basic respect for everybody.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Dr. Orling,
Yes. First of
Final-
all, go ahead.
just final thoughts.
Oh, final thoughts. I thought you were going to ask the cafeteria question. I was ready for it, but no, just joking. No. I would like to say, first of all, thank you again, you know, for being here. Your Interact sponsors are very fortunate to have you. We are very fortunate to have you in our school system. You are our future, right? When I look at leaders, I'm looking in the audience right now, and I'm looking at our future leaders, not only in our community, but our state as well. One of the questions that we didn't ask was looking for leadership opportunities. I'm going to lead you with this, right? Leadership is not about a position. I'm not a leader because I'm the superintendent. Judge Marcel isn't a leader because he's a judge. Sheriff Champagne isn't a leader because he's a sheriff. Our president isn't a leader because he's the president. Leadership is about adding value to others, right? And the only way you add value to others is by serving others. So when you look at the people on this table, or at this table and at this forum, we serve, right? If you're looking for leadership opportunities, look for opportunities to serve others. Because when you serve others, that's when leadership happens. It's not about a position. So regardless of where you are in the school and you're looking for opportunities, oh, well, what leadership opportunities are going to be afforded me? It's not about me, right? It's about others. So when you speak about leadership and you look for opportunities, you look to serve others, and I guarantee you, you'll find a leadership opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Orling. President Cochran.
Thank you. Dr. Ortling brings up a valid point with leadership. You know, this was never a plan for me to become parish president. I had no interest in politics growing up, none, zero. Didn't even know probably who was president most of the time I was a teenager. I got into the fire department helping my neighbors. I actually saw my neighbors at their absolute worst. I put some of my neighbors' kids in body bags. And you serve, you start serving in that capacity, and it becomes something you enjoy, helping your neighbor. You know, I always tell all my firemen, you know, when they coming up, you lead by example. You don't ask somebody to go roll up 50 foot of hose, let's go roll it up together. You know, you lead by example. Social media is, that's something that's just taken over right now. It's unbelievable what's going on social media. You know, people do and say on that, and they think there's no repercussions. When you do and say something about people, you not only affect that person, you affect the people connected with them. So be careful out there with social media. Don't judge a person until you walk a mile in their shoes. And thank y'all for letting me be a part of this again. I enjoyed it, and if anyone would like to come spend some time up on the 3rd floor with me and see what it is to run a parish, you're more than welcome to. I'd love that. So thank y'all again.
All right, let's give a round of applause to each of our panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being with us here tonight at the New Generations Forum. We're thankful for our Rotary Club of St. Charles, the our Rotary Club president, Ms. Victoria Bryant, who's here tonight. And we're thankful for Jim Hooper and Jackie Bryant, who have helped put this event together. We're thankful for our Interact clubs, including the sponsors, Ms. Hope Barnhill, Ms. Marcella Saavedra, and Ms. Giovanna Girelli. That's what I tried to say. This is my guy making sure I don't forget anything. Also would like to thank Ms. Stevie Cravetta for her work putting this together as well. We're thankful for each of our students and all of those who are visiting with us via the television, and we're thankful for our panelists as well. All right, with that said, we are dismissed. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.